longest for you guys. So, 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 so these are just suggestions, right? And some of them are, which I noticed from the writing that. So take it as suggestion. You could like discard it, use it. So you have started with there is this line that you have said standard theories have indicated geography, culture, natural resources are as primary reason, but empirical evidence has often contradicted them. Just cite a paper so that I can know what standard theories.
Okay.
When you talk about when you are critiquing those standard theories, what are these standard theories that you are critiquing, and then so that is like a general practice where even you are citing the literature which you are critiquing. So,
what if it's like a compendium of research that I've read?
Cite it.
All of it.
Yeah, no, if there is like a, if you have lots of research, cite 2-3.
Okay.
Cite 2-3 so that like in bracket you cite this comma 2003, this comma 2003. That okay. So that we can know. So for example, if you have said you have mentioned geography and culture, so cite 2 literature which has like one on geography, one on culture. You do not have to cite every literature which talks about geography and culture, but at least cite some.
But we have to explain like little bit about geography.
No, you don't have to. Just cite
only.
it because you have already noted it. So that is. If you do not, then you will have to explain. If you cite it, then I can know that there is a paper which. So that is the like. And then you have said that you have given example of Venezuela and said it disproves, right? So I would say do not use strong claim, like do not say disprove. Disprove is a very strong claim,
very hard
because you need resource. Without resource also, it's I mean one of the like China and US, these are hugely resourceful countries, like huge. So disprove would be like you have to show that it is necessary but not sufficient condition, that sort of thing.
Insufficient.
Don't use hard language.
So, and there is a this the chart that you have made on architecture of development. So that linkages, and the feedback make it more clear, because it is like how the feedback is moving from one. So that is so that is like slightly so that it's easy to read.
Yes.
That's all. And then you have mentioned about learning and adapting for local context. That is good. And then you have summarized Asimoglu's institutions. That is nice. And then about graph. Now when you look at the graphs that you have made, always label x and y axis, because right now it is not labeled. And also I mention what the y axis is. If when it is in dollar, I do not know whether it is in PPP dollar or whether it is in US dollar. So that like
Purchasing power.
so, and the title make it very exact. Right now I do not know what the title is. Like the title is very like title of the graph. The title of the graph should not be divergent growth model. It should be simply per capita income, how it has changed. Right now I have to guess whether it is per capita income or not.
The title, it should be self-explanatory.
Self-explanatory. So and then you have given example of Nigeria and Botswana, and then then you have made a comparison in the table number 1. So when you are making comparison, cite some source, so that from where what source you have used to make that comparison. So and
what source could I have used it? Because this is like independent research of each.
Yeah, but so for example, if scholars have studied Nigeria, right, or if scholars have studied Botswana, you are referring to their literature.
Okay.
So you use that. I'm not saying that the scholars must have studied Nigeria and Botswana together. Synthesis is your job. You are selecting 2 countries and their growth experience, you are trying to combine them. But then someone would have studied those 2 countries. So use their so that I can know where you are taking that argument from. So essentially, the point of it is, even the reader also, if I am interested in that comparison, I would go back to that source and try to read that. So it also sometimes it helps me also to learn. So that, and So you have, and then you have made this comparison of Nigeria and Botswana, and then Botswana you have mentioned that it's an exceptional case. Now, if you could write about any reason why this was exceptional, because that will provide insight for other LDCs also, because they are similar, because Nigeria is also a resource-rich country in terms of. So, what learning could from Botswana could be applied to Nigeria? So, if you could add any explanatory power to your argument, it makes for a richer. So, next you have summarized Hajun Chang, and then you have there's this one line that you have mentioned. No, if it is from Chang, you write Chang, or if it is from some other source, cite that. When you mentioned about Bismarck and Meiji restoration in Japan. So, if it is, if you are taking it from Chang, so write that reference there, so that because so that I can people can understand.
I'm just a little confused on the fact that what if this is something of my own learning? Like, how do I cite that?
So own learning, as in you would have read somewhere, right?
Yes.
So what all I'm saying is that put that.
So should I cite a history book here then?
Yes. If you can, no, not a problem. So suppose if you have if you are reading a history book on, say, Meiji restoration and how they invested in education and all those things, you just cite it and put it in the references, so that if as a reader, if I am interested in that particular history, I will go to that reference and I read on my own. Right now, I just have this document.
Okay. But then do I not run a risk of the entire document becoming citations only?
So that is the point. You do not, I mean, see, the point of writing is, see, citation is not the, so the thing is, when you are citing it, you are using those citations and you are making an argument on the basis of those citations. So you need to have your own original argument, but those arguments has to have some basis in some research which is either done by you or which has come before you. So that is what the idea of standing on the shoulders of giants. Like people who have already done those research, you are using that in a novel art setting
as a baseline.
Yes. So it's, you do not, I would say the opposite is true. If you do not cite it, then it becomes a problem. Then people would consider it as a plagiarism. So the opposite is, you run the risk of people calling it as a plagiarism. So the idea is you should not pass research as your own. So when you are saying that Bismarck, this happened, either it is your own research of looking at all those old German documents and coming up with this argument, or either someone has already done it and you have read it. So you just cite that. That is
Understood.
so, and since you have mentioned both Africa and Latin America in the growth thing, you can have a plot of both together. Do not have like you have just plot of one. I think you have just plot of Latin America.
Yes.
So and but in the sentence you have mentioned both Africa and Latin America. So either you can have a plot for both, or in the same graph. You can have the same graph. Again, you need to have like clear titling of the graph.
Yes.
That is like for throughout the document. That is for throughout the and you have a very good reference of Alice Amsden and the case that you have mentioned of Vietnam and Ethiopia, both very interesting. You could explore those two cases. Like both are very relevant. Vietnam right now is doing very well. Ethiopia undergoing civil war. So those, and what they did right, what they did wrong, those things, and what can be learned from them. So you could explore that. That is a very good. And then you have inferred from Chang that you note that the policy choice matters. Now here you could look into how much freedom LDC have in terms of exercising these choices. Because right now in the context, the current global context, how much policy choice freedom do LDCs have is a very relevant question. I mean, the moment you try to develop your own industry through, say, trade barrier, so you run the risk of like a bigger, richer country like coming at you. So, and you also have the risk of, say, if you want to regulate the capital might go away from your country. So that sort of freedom.
Risk of government change.
Yes,
so
yes. So,
they will get discouraged.
so the taxation,
Taxation.
the risk of how. So those things you could look into because you have already mentioned Vietnam and Ethiopia. So
I did touch upon it a bit in the recommendation.
yeah. So and then you have really good citation of after Mokai summarizing, you have a good citation of Freeman, right? What you can do is you could look into a lot of catching up literature in terms of innovation and catching up literature. You could build on Freeman. You could look into Nelson. You could look into Fagerberg and Godinho, innovation and catching up. There is a very nice essay on innovation and catching up by Fagerberg, Fagerberg, and Godinho, Godinho. So you could look into that paper. You could look into Nelson's National Innovation Systems, a comparative analysis. So, I mean, these are just some pointers. You could, once you are reading this literature, you could like find like several other where they are studying innovation, experience of innovation in these countries, East Asian countries, and European countries and the American countries, and what can be learned from them. And then what you could do is in your analysis, you could apply it, try to apply it for the sustainable growth, because they are not talking about sustainable growth. Because you keep in mind that they are talking about purely economic growth.
Yes.
So sustainable growth is that is where your innovation comes in writing. That you are using these arguments to come up with your own argument. So and then there is you have mentioned foreign dependence and adaptation of innovation for local context. So now you could think about what kind of policies we developed. How much successful, say, PLI was? Was it successful? And if not, what could be done for that? And what could learning from PLI be applied for? How could these learning be applied for the LDCs?
Make in India.
Yeah. So that adaptation of innovation for local context is something you could like look into in more detail. And then you have inclusive institutions. You begin with inclusive institutions, and so you could talk about will these institutions be the same as developed nations, or do we need to develop newer institutions for LDCs? So that is what I mean. You could explore like what kind of understanding of institutions. And finally, you conclude with this line that developing countries must emphasize on education system that equip the citizen with critical thinking and innovation linked skills, while building national system of innovation that foster linkages between academia, industry and government. Now this is now widely understood, but why do they not do this? Like why do policymakers not do this?
Okay.
So this is very difficult, but this is something you could like try to like argue or try to understand that even when the policies are known, like in academic literature, we have solid evidence that this should be done, and yet this is not done. So what is it that's stopping these kinds of things? So that is where we could bring the role of society that Asimoglu talks about. Like how do you leverage society to make institutions less extractive, more like inclusive? So that pressure on the state from the society, that society demands certain things.
So that is perhaps another recommendation that could come in here. Understood.
How do we start from science tech innovation policy? In the end, we land up history, society.
So that is where like you have like this very wide set of literature where you are studying institutions, where you are studying innovation, where you are studying historical experience, and then you are trying to combine it, and then you are trying to come up with the argument for the future. So you are using this literature, but the argument that you are making is not directly from this literature. You are using it, combining it, and then so that is where your writing comes like.
So this essay is mainly for the science tech policy innovation. So what should be the ratio between these and other factors like history, political,
See,
geography?
history is the running theme.
Okay.
What is history? Is history of development. How has that development come about? Through innovation, through institutions, through policy. So history is the theme, running theme, and then future is what you are projecting it on. So that is the second part where you are trying to learn from history for the future. So that is the second LDC part where you are trying to understand sustainable development.
I was reading a book which tells that it is a geography which help a major part in developing the countries.
So that is so people make that argument and that you could justify that argument, but it's not just one factor. Because development is very complex. Otherwise, I mean, a lot of geographically rich regions are very poor in African countries.
Yes.
So in India, in a lot of regions in India, which are, I mean, in terms of resource-wise, very rich, are one of the most poor regions in India. So I mean, people have come up with one explanation of geography, but that alone will not be sufficient. So, and that is the Acemoglu's point, where he talks about how geography alone is not going to. And if you need any literature, you can mail me. If I have it, I can suggest. And also, just ensure that the graphs are properly yes. That is. Otherwise, it was like a that, and you could like these examples that you have mentioned, no, Vietnam and Ethiopia. You could like try to build on it. It would be really nice, to, because these two are very good cases.
We are also trying to write about the India-China, like from 90s to.
Yeah, that is really if you can do that, and if you can like, because that is something which I believe everyone should be studying it, because when for us
90s.
the immediate relevance is of China, like because we are the same size
At the
and
time,
dignity.
during
So-
90s.
So I mean the way they have like rapidly grown and like leapfrogged us in last 30 years. So that is a like experience like any Indian public policy should be.
Yes.
Which is China becoming more relevant as we are as the BRIC and SHO are becoming more powerful and becoming like another isolated from the West. Is it becoming more relevant because of that?
No, not just because isolated. See, we have to stop looking in terms of isolation from West. Like look at in the you look at in a reverse way also. The West is getting isolated.
Okay.
I mean, which except for the few countries of West, all of us, the entire world is doing trade with China.
Yes.
I mean, you have Latin American, you have African countries, you have like Southeast Asian countries, you have India. All of us are doing trade with China. It is they who are so not. It's not the reverse that we should be. So the thing with the Chinese case is like for Indian relevance is we have to learn from them also, and also we have to keep in mind that a lot of challenges that we are facing is also because of their rapid growth.
Yes.
Our failure to raise our manufacturing GDP is because they have captured a lot of market, and we are now not competitive because they have captured and they supply at a much lower cost. So their rise has to be learned as well as has to be understood in terms of how they have made us less competitive in terms of in a lot of. So that is why their experience has to be studied. The West is not irrelevant in that sense.
Okay.
The US is the biggest trade partner for China.
We are the, I mean, we trade a lot with China. We have a lot of deficit. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.